I rarely watch the news anymore. And that's because I'm so tired of all the negativity that's coming through the news. And I miss understanding what's going on in the world, but there's so much hatred and negativity being reported that it's impacted my spirit in a negative way. So I just had to take a break, at least for a little bit. I believe overall we have very little tolerance for those things that we do not know about, that we do not understand. And in some cases, that intolerance fosters fears and uncertainty, and even hate. One of the areas of particular focus for intolerance lately is religion, and more specifically, the Islam religion, as well as those who adhere to Islam, which are called Muslims. This is not anything new. Different religious people have been persecuted since the beginning of time, so it's not just focused on one. But in my opinion, this is more of a human rights issue. One of the most important aspects of the human rights issue is the respect and tolerance for which society must show towards religions of other people. And this, of course, includes the freedom of religion. The events after the First World War to the present time have created an atmosphere in the Western world where Islam is branded as a religion of terror and where Muslims are branded as terrorists. I'm not going to go into a lengthy and in-depth discussion about this right now, but let me say this one thing about the issuance of tolerance towards minorities and freedom of practicing religion. If we were to compare the attitude of the Muslim rulers towards the minorities living under their rule with the attitudes of Europeans and Americans towards their minorities, I dare say that the record of the Muslims would be much better. I think we can learn quite a bit from our Muslim brothers and sisters on that one topic. Research shows that people react differently to uncertainty, and that those with higher intolerance for uncertainty may be less resilient and may be more prone to a lower mood, negativity, down feelings, and of course, consternation. These aren't good things to have, so maybe we should be working more on a skill set to better cope with the uncertainty in our lives, not just about religion, but about other things, and learn more about those things that cause us the fear and trepidation that we experience. This is probably going to be a long journey for most people, but I'll just slightly start you off by educating you about a piece of the Islamic religion that you may not understand very well. There are currently more than 1 billion people around the world that are abstaining from eating, drinking, smoking, and sex from dawn to sunset this month. That's a lot of people, over 1 billion. They are Muslims who are fasting during the holy month of Ramadan. Fasting is one of the 5 pillars of the religion of Islam and one of the highest forms of Islamic worship. Abstinence from earthly pleasures and curbing evil intentions and desires is regarded as an act of obedience for this religion and a submission to God, as well as an atonement for their sins, errors, and mistakes. Called Ramadan, Muslims fast during this month from the moment when it first starts to get light until sunset. They fast as an act of faith and worship towards God, seeking to express or suppress their desires and increase their spiritual piety. Fasting together as a worldwide community affirms the brotherhood and equality of man before God. Nothing too evil so far, right? We've heard this in other religions as well. It's a bit hard on the tummy because it grumbles during Ramadan, but that part is actually intentional. Muslims follow a lunar calendar. The month of Ramadan is actually the 9th month in their lunar calendar and officially begins with a combination of the sighting of the new moon and astronomical calculations. The fasting period begins at the sighting of the first new moon, which occurs after, the sighting of the first new moon, and it ends with the sighting of the next new moon, which typically occurs 29 to 30 days afterwards. In 2019, this year, Ramadan began on May 6th, and it will conclude on June 4th. So we are about 3/4 of the way through it right now. It brings out a special feeling of emotional excitement and religious zeal among Muslims of all ages. As Ramadan emphasizes Muslim brotherhood and community, those that participate feel a particular closeness to their Creator and amongst their family and friends. That's a really positive thing, to be closer to the people that you love. Muslims adapt themselves both physically and emotionally. They have to do this because it's such a long period of fasting. A typical day of fasting begins with getting up early, usually around 4:30 before the dawn breaks, and sharing a meal together before the fast begins at dawn. Perhaps, Mike, this is something you should have done when you worked at IBM. You would have had more time to spend with your family, right? As dawn breaks, the first of the 5 daily prayers is offered. As the day proceeds, fasting Muslims are constantly bombarded with messages from their stomachs, of course. Messages about, hey, it's breakfast time, it's snack time, it's dinner time. And each time they remind themselves that they are fasting for the sole purpose of pleasing God and seeking His mercy. They offer a second and third prayer during the early and late afternoon, respectively, and fasting helps one to experience how a hungry person feels and what it is like to have an empty stomach. It teaches one to share the sufferings of the less fortunate, and Muslims believe that fasting leads one to appreciate the bounties of God, which are usually taken for granted, of course, until they are missed. Throughout the day, Muslims are encouraged to go out of the way to help the needy, both financially and emotionally, and some believe that a reward earned during this period is paid back 70 times. For this reason, Ramadan is also known as the month of charity and generosity. I've just provided you with a small snippet of Ramadan, but know that Ramadan is so much more than just fasting. I hope it enticed you to at least explore this tradition, to learn a little bit more about the Islamic religion, and maybe, just maybe, alleviate some of the intolerance for the things that we fully do not understand. Regardless of our religious beliefs, we are all human and are entitled to the basic human rights. Mr. Toastmaster.